record on this computer. Now it is recording. So please, Amalie, take it away.
Yes. Thank you Tufik for your time. And as Christian said, I've been using the last month to research mainly, and I see this interview as kind of like your input, but also kind of fact-checking what we found out. So yeah, and I have a list of questions about the administrative system in Ethiopia, about land rights and about lobby processes, and I'll just try to go through them and we can kind of discuss this as it goes. So some of the first things we would like to know is about the administrative system in Ethiopia. I have tried to make a diagram about how I think it looks, and I think maybe that could be a starting point for like maybe you could explain us if it's true what I have figured out. So I will try to share my screen if I can. This one. Yeah, so it looks a bit messy, but I try to like make an overview of how the administrative system looks in Ethiopia, with like the Prime Minister and the House of People and the House of Federation. I would just like to know if it's true that, for example, we have both the Prime Minister and we have the President, and they have kind of different roles. And can you explain the difference between those two characters? It makes sense. Sophie?
Hello?
Hello? Could you hear me, or was it unclear?
Yeah, these structures shows us that in every nation there is a different government structures or how states will be running. That means there should be a check and a balance among different government structures. We look at the left side from my side, it's the legislative, and the center is the executive organ, and the right side is the judiciary body. So the executive organ is the one who is responsible to run or execute the government, the day-to-day or the long-term role and responsibilities of a government. So it's an institution which is responsible to present its plan and execute a different government role and responsibilities. We know governments have different responsibilities in economic, social, political, and environmental issues on all aspects. So the executive organ the executive organ will be responsible or accountable to the legislative body. That means we have a House of People representative, or we call it a parliament, and the House of Federation. The House of People will be chosen by the communities or the people living in a different regional states. So that means each region has its own number of members that will be chosen to the federal parliament. So there are candidates that will be run in the election at regional level. Those who win the election will join the federal House of People's Representative, which is an organization, it's an institution, or it's a parliament, which is only focusing work on legislative power. It has more legislative power. That means it is the one that legislates or draft and executes the different policies and the strategies of the country. But the House of Federation is the members are coming from the different ethnic groups in Ethiopia. We have around 90 ethnic groups in Ethiopia in total. So each ethnic group will be represented in that the House of Federation. So most of the time, the responsibilities are directly related to budget approval and the calculation. There are different the the variables in calculating budget. For instance, if you take for the last 2 or 3 decades, Ethiopia, this House of Federation have been using equity variables, performance. When you say equity, it depends on the number of people living in one particular area or in one region, the geographic boundary, the size of the geographic, the geography of the region, and the development level of one particular region. All these are under equity variables. The other one is the performance. It considers also what looks like the performance of the last year budget utilization. This is under performance. So all this will be considered in budget approval or budget proportion. That means allocation of budget to different regional states. That means just something that most of the responsibilities of the House of Federation is related to budgeting to the regional states. The second major responsibility is related to what we call it, regarding there might be a different interests. There are different conflicts might be there, here and there among the different ethnic groups. So this institution is the one who is responsible to have to resolve all such kinds of conflicts, all the different interests, to reconcile different interests, and looking the definition of the constitution, that means it is the one who interpret and give more detailed definition for the articles under our constitution. So these are the major responsibilities of the two parliaments. So in a paper level, we look at this structure. It seems that the two parliaments have more power than the executive organ in a paper level. But when we see the actual implementation or the existing situation in Ethiopia, the executive organ in a paper level, I say that it's accountable to the parliament, but there is no concrete autonomous power. The two parliaments do not have that much power to influence or to control the executive organ. The executive organ is able to do whatever it wants. That means it can influence the parliament. And in the last 20 years since I following up the political situation in Ethiopia, there is no any policy or law that was rejected by the parliament while the executive organ is willing to enact it. So these are the existing situation. The judiciary is the one who translates the law which was enacted by the legislative body. So as we see, also the judiciary is independent, or is independent autonomous power. It has a different, it's an independent one, but at the same time, the executive organ also will influence the judiciary. So we know the existing situation and the political space environment in Ethiopia. So in a paper level, this is the reality. But when we see the fact on the ground, the executive organ is dominating or controlling or using all these institutions as a tool to execute its interests.
Okay.
The members of the government, how are they? How do you what do you call it? How is the government constituted? By local elections or by national elections, or how do you form the government?
Yeah, in Ethiopia, we are not implementing a direct democracy. If we see the Western country or America, there is a direct democracy. That means Americans will elect their president in a direct democracy. So when it came to Ethiopia, for most of since our government institution is a federal, that means we are implementing a federal system. ethnic-based federal system. That means our regions, we have 10 regional states and 2 city administrations in Ethiopia in total. So the people in one particular area, or what we can call it a district, zone, or a region, there might be a different elections in a 5 years interval. So the election will be done in a different stage. There are, let us say, there are different parties competing or running for that election. So the election will be done in a different layers or in a different kind. There are elections which is running for the federal parliament, and at the same time there are elections for the regional parliament. So the people, those candidates are a different people. So in election, as I said in previously, there are the number of, or is a quota base. That means each region has a fixed number of members to run for the election for the parliament. So, for instance, let us say the parliament have 547 members in total. So all this will be elected on one in their respective regional states. So they will join the parliament. The winning party, that means the one who is having the major parliament seats, will be the ruling party of Ethiopia, or a parliament. So the prime minister will be elected from that particular the winning or the ruling party. That means they came into the parliament, but even during the election, they know who is going to be the prime minister of Ethiopia, but they not make it clear for the people. They not inform the people of Ethiopia. So they know it, but the people will not know who is going to be the prime minister of Ethiopia. So the ruling party will select the prime minister. So the parliament will accept that one because they have the upper hand of the voice. So in that way, the prime minister will be elected, and will assign or elect the members of the council of ministers. He select the ministries and assign a different directorates or leaders to the major institutions or organization, government bureaus in Ethiopia. So in that way, the government will be established.
Okay, thank you for the elaboration, Tufik. That was very informative. And hello, Edixo. Nice that you can be here. I don't know how much you know about this meeting, but it's like a kind of like an interview with you two Ethiopians about Ethiopia, about the administrative system, about land rights, and about lobby processes. And I just asked Tufik to elaborate on the administrative system in Ethiopia. So yeah, I think I'll just keep on asking questions, and then you can both like supplement each other with it. But I think that was some good input for this part. I think I will stop screen sharing. So,
but let me just can I ask Amelie, the House of People and the House of Federation, I guess they are federal entities, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so but at the regional states, how does I would like to know, I don't know if you get to that, Amelie, but what kind of are the systems similar in the regional states? Do they have a similar administrative setups, or are they different? And you say they don't have elections at the same time also?
It depends. For instance, in remote areas, the government, the election authority might not be willing and able to conduct the two elections at the same time because there might be the logistics, human resource challenges. But in a center of Ethiopia, if the election board is willing to do that one, there are occasions that in which the election is going side by side. But in most cases, the regional election might be delayed to some extent.
Okay.
But regarding the type of structure at regional level, as to my knowledge, there is only one parliament, like the federal people's representative at federal level. So the different districts or zones will carry out the election, and those elected will join the regional states parliament. So those regional states parliament members will elect the regional president, and the regional president will same time select the different bureau heads, considering the ethnic diversity of that particular region. So there is the same structure which is in the regional states also. The other point that might be relevant to this discussion is the establishment of a different government institutions and their collaboration with the federal government institution. As we see, there is a kind of matrix structure. That means for instance, if we take the forest and natural resource or climate change directorate or bureau at regional level, it will be because the directorate or the leader of that institution, let us call it the Forest Development or Agriculture Development Bureau, the leader will be elected, as I said, from the regional, by the regional president. That person might be assigned to the bureau. So that means the bureau or offices are directly accountable to the regional government structure or the regional president. But at the same time, they have a collaboration and a planning, reporting collaboration, technical assistance collaboration with the federal government institutions. The federal government institutions, that means the regional bureaus, are directly accountable to the regional government. There might be the federal institutions will provide technical and follow-up support to the regional bureaus. This is a kind of a matrix structure out there. But most of the government institutions at federal level are claiming that the regional bureaus are not that much responsive to the directions and the planning and reporting communications, because they think that, as you know, in Ethiopia recently, most regional states are demanding more autonomous power to plan and execute and to have adapted plan and implementation. So they consider they are only responsible to the regional government. They don't much worried about the communication and the supports of the federal institution.
Okay. I think I would like to, I don't know, do you have more questions about that question?
You're talking about regional bureaus. A bureau. What is a bureau? Is that the way I understand it? It's more or less similar. At a federal level, you have ministries, and at the regional level, you have bureaus.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and they have what is the leader of a bureau called?
Yeah, it's called the head of bureau.
Head of bureau, okay.
The head of Agriculture and the Natural Resource Bureau, he call it, for instance.
Okay, are the bureaus the number of the bureaus and the names? For example, you have any, as you say, agriculture bureau. Are they the same in each state, or do they have different kinds of bureaus?
Yeah, more or less they are similar, but depending on the livelihood base, there might be differences in structure. For instance, if we go to the pastoral areas of Ethiopia, to mention Somali and Afar, the bureaus, the agriculture bureau, for instance, they might call it Agriculture and Natural Resource Bureau. We have one bureau. At the same time, there might be Pastoral Development and the Livestock Bureau. That means because most of the community living in that region is a pastoral community, So it establishes pastoral development and the
Mm.
livestock bureau.
Mm.
Pastoral
Okay.
development, yeah. But if we go to the highlands of Ethiopia, there is no a pastoral community in that area. So most of the time they combine agriculture and the livestock in one institution.
Mm.
But they have a different agencies or
Mm.
directorates under the same bureau.
Okay.
And I read that there's like different scales in the regional government. So you have the regional government, and then you have something called zones. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. The zone structure, let me give you one example. A zone, if we take the South nations and the nationalities peoples region, it's one region. When you call it as a region, it's a one region. But there are different nation and the nationalities in one particular region to that South and nation nationalities people's region. So each ethnic group has its own zone. Each ethnic group will have its own zone. Under the zone, we have a different districts. But if we came to Amhara region, in Amhara region, there are a zone. There are zone. At the same time, there are a districts. But in Amhara region, the zone do not have that much power because all people belongs to the same ethnic group in Amhara region.
Mm.
I'm not saying that 100% of the people living in Amhara is Amhara, but there are minorities in Amhara. But because more or less the people have common culture, common language, etc. That's why the regional states can directly communicate to the district by passing the
The
zone
zone.
because the zone might not have a different interest. But when it comes to the southern nation nationalities, each zone has its own different culture, language, interest. That's why the zone has more power. In other words, the Southern Asian nationalities people zone is considered as one region of other Ethiopian parts. This is the reason behind. But in everywhere we have a zone. If we go to Somali region, we have zones. More than 90 zones are there in Somali regional states. But the zone is not functional. It's 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 there as a structure, but it's not doing that much significant contribution.
Okay.
Because all Somalis belongs to one ethnic group and they speak one language. This is the difference.
But and if the group declare themselves a zone, like do they have to request to be a zone, or are the zones assigned beforehand? Like how do you establish a zone, or are they already all established?
Yeah, it depends. As I said previously, if we take the Amhara, Somali, Afar, the zone was established only for the purpose of administrative structure to the boundary, or because if there is it's for the planning and other different purposes, the zone might be established. It's only making the administration simple. But when you go to the Southern Asian nationalities, it's not about administrative, rather it's a political structure, because each and every ethnic group wants to have a separate geographic area. It wants to have an area or a living area in which its culture, language is exercised. So it depends on. In most of the area, it's only for the purpose of administrative purpose. But in the southern areas, it's a political interest.
Okay.
So in the case of, for example, the southern nations, nationals, peoples region, when you have several zones, then I guess their mandate is bigger. Or what is the mandate of the zone? What do they do in that case? We lost Tofik. Can you help us, Ejixev, while Tofik is coming back? You are muted. You need to unmute.
Sorry for late joining.
No problem.
My connectivity had a problem. I think the mandates in zone and the mandate in regional states have almost similar, but it is, the power is devolved. So for sharing of power, and some, as Tofik said, for sake of coordination, administration, and licensing, in some regions like Amara region, it is less powerful, while in SNNPR has more power because of ethnic diversity. Those who have diversified ethnics, the zone is become more powerful. So almost it is a replica of the actual mandate is a replica of the regional bureaus, but in terms of sharing of power, just they give a zone more power to exercise their language because of language diversity. Just it is for sake of sharing power, and in Amara region, for example, for coordination and licensing and just expediting of administrative processes. I think the mandate is almost similar. It is a replica, or it's a parstata of the regional office, I think. Maybe Tofik is working in pastoral area very well. He knows zonal structure. If he come, I think he can more elaborate. But as far as I know, the task is almost, the mandate is a replica. But in terms of sharing power and exercising of their power, especially because the zone are different ethnic representative from the region. Regions are, for example, in south, there are Walaita and Sidama zones. So in the region, maybe a mix of different ethnicity you can find in south. But in specific their respective zones, they have more autonomous power they can exercise. But in terms of mandate, almost just it is cascading down of tasks to the lower level, and just to allowing them to exercise their, especially to speak their language, to use their language in daily routine activities, to promote their culture. Such autonomous given to each respective zones. But in terms of mandates, they have similar mandates. Just the region allows the zone to exercise their power, to enrich their culture, their language. So we can say that it is a replica or a paristata of the region, but it gives a space for, as you know, it's ethnic-based federalism. People's needs, their basic agenda is, promoting of their language, promoting of their culture. So they think communally, not as such as a single person, as an individual. So just to accommodate such kinds of, conflicts, disputes, and just quarrels, just the government trying to just create a zone and allow people to exercise their need, representation, exercising of culture, exercising of power, promoting of cultures, using of language in administratively, in day-to-day operation of, even in the offices, in bureaus, in the government structure. not only just in the social life, but in the bureaucracy as well. I think it is my reflection on this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and in relation to that, I just want to make sure that the Voreda, is that right? That's the district. I read there's like a Voreda and a Kebele.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it is a structure of the government. As Tawfiq says, Warada is almost district. Kabale is more the less district of Warada, has less power. It reporting directly to the Warada. The Warada reporting to the zone reports to the regions are reported to the federal. So the low level is Kabale. It is devolved this way. The devolution is just like this. So the lower level is Kabale. It differs from one region to another region. It depends on the population size. So some regions have many Kabales compared with other. So it is a devolution structure. It is a country how we run the countries. Like you see in Kenya, it's counties or like that. Kabale is like that, I think.
Okay. And what kind of power do, for example, the Kebele have? What do they do? Do they decide to build a new road, or do they?
No, as such, the Kabale is more near to the people on the ground. So more administrative functions of they are depend on functional activities. Like what I mean, functional activity like registering of people, providing of their ID card. So it's more they have less power compared with Warada. Waradas are more in power in resources, like they issue land ownership certificates and such like that. But actually at Kabale level, you can get ID cards, identity cards, marriage certificates, as such activities. But in terms of deciding on resources, like I'm saying, property rights, it's such things at Warada level, budget formulation even at Warada level, which cascaded from or which roll down from the regions. So they have activities, but as just it's more a routine at Kabale level, more compared with high strategic levels. Engagement is just coming from on the hyper structure of the arrangement of the government, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I think I would like to move on to discuss land rights in Ethiopia, unless Christian, you have more questions about the. Oh no, I have one more question.
Okay.
Actually, myself, I forgot. I read there is something called the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, and I just wanted to know, what is your impression of this commission? Does it have any power, or can it be of any use? Have you heard of it before?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Ethiopia Human Rights Commission is a government organization. It is reporting to, I think, to the Prime Minister, but especially in the new recent government arrangement, it become more autonomous and investigates every issues, critical issues, ethnic conflicts and such. It works with even civil societies and others who works on rights, human rights. So it is a public organization. There are other civic organizations works on human rights as well, but the Human Rights Commission is a government organization. I don't know they have replica in the region. I think they would have, but not as such involved in what I want to say, in more detail level like other sectors like agriculture, health. This is almost working in all regions. However, maybe I don't think the Human Rights Commission has a capacity just to involve in every aspect of issues, and I don't think it has such huge capacity like offices in every region. But if there are issues, I think they just go from the Addis and try to investigate in every issues in every region, rather than such as a formal organization. I don't think it has a structure for formal organization in day-to-day routine activity like other sectors, other basic social service like water, wash, what we call it, education, agriculture, and such like. So I think I heard about.
Tofik, have you been working with the Human Rights Commission in any way?
Yeah, I have no experience working with that institution, but from the different medias and mass medias, we have been following up the existing situation in Ethiopia regarding the Human Rights Commission. So I think it was established in 2004 by the government. It's considered as an independent institution, and which is directly accountable to the House of People's Representative. So we initially, before the Abiy Ahmed came to the power, this institution is considered as the voice of government, not only siding to protect the human rights in Ethiopia, because there was a different human rights violations in Ethiopia in the last 3 decades. So most of the reports coming, investigation reports coming, is in favor of the government, rather than coming up with a finding that tells us, that shows the existing, the fact on the ground. But recently there was a change of trend in that situation after Abiy Ahmed came to the power. And there was also the commissioner is a person called Daniel Bakala, which was working in Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch. He has experience working in the 2 international institutions, human rights institutions, Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch. So he came to that position in February 2019. Since then, there was a change. That means the findings coming. In general, the commission has the role and responsibilities of the commission can be categorized in two broad categories. The first one is creating awareness of the human rights using different channels, different events, different communication ways. It tries to promote the human right and create awareness. The second component is working or protecting the basic human rights in Ethiopia. These are under the 2 major components. The commission was focusing more on protecting the labor issues, the prisoners' situation, and it has done a lot of achievement on that area. But regarding the violations, human rights violations, specifically the violation which was conducted by the government, was not showing the fact on the ground. But since Abiy Ahmed coming to the power, and the new commissioner called Daniel Bakal coming to the commissioner position, there was a change. For instance, there was ongoing conflicts in Oromia. You know that since in June 2020, there was the political riots in Oromia region following the killing of a well-known singer called Hachalu Hundessa. So the finding was, so the commission has conducted an investigation on that issue, and one of the major findings was that the security forces have used excessive power So the findings this shows, which was never seen before the previous findings. This is one. This is one change. The other one is there are ongoing conflicts, ethnic-based conflicts here and there. So the commission recently has conducted a report, has compiled a report that tells the fact on the ground. So in which the government is not happy with that finding. So all this tells us there was a change on how the commission is acting regarding the human rights violation in Ethiopia. But I don't think this will continue because the government, you see, the political space is narrowing from time to time, and the government is acting going to the nature of dictatorship. So if the commission is going to produce such kinds of report, I think there might be some sort of conflict between the government and the commission.
And it is the government who appoints the head of the commission, or the leaders of the commission.
Yeah, in a practice, I think it's the prime minister that is proposing the guy, but in the rule or in the law, the commission is accountable to the House of People Representative because it should be independent. It has to have an independent autonomous power, which has to be free from the influence of the executive organ. Because even one of the responsibility of the commission might be to come up with an investigation which can be conducted by the government or by different parties. So it is expected to be independent organ, but in actual, it is the prime minister that might propose the commissioner, but it should not be in that way because since it is accountable to the House of Representatives, it should be the House of Representatives that should select the commissioner of the commission.
Okay. But Tofik, do you know if the commission has a regional structure or is it only at a national level?
No, from 2000, I said it was established in 2004. From 2004 up to 2011, there was not any officers at regional level. But in 2011, it has established a few regional offices. Now it is increasing its number of offices in the regions. As to my knowledge, the first regional office was established in 2011. Because for about 7 years, there was no any regional offices since it was established.
Okay.
So you can apply like with a case to the commission if you have a case about your human rights being abused, or I don't know. So then you can go to the Human Rights Commission and then they can run a case, or how does it work?
Yeah, you see, I don't have detailed information on that one, but I'm not expert. But to raise some issues, there was it accepts the complaint coming from the different communities or peoples, and it will investigate. But if we see that previously, if the commission believed that the claim coming from the community is not consistent with the interest of the government, it might reject. You might heard that there was a debate regarding the forest depletion in Gambela region because large forest areas was provided to the investors coming from Saudi, Djibouti, and 2 or 3 countries. So in that occasion, the people living in the forest area has claimed to the Human Rights Commission, Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. So the commission said it's not under my role and responsibilities because it's an issue of it's not an it's considered that it's not an issue of human rights violation. Rather, you have to go to the court or a different government institution. So these are the occasions or the events that we have seen.
Okay, yeah. So yeah.
But also from what I understand from what you say is that the Human Rights Commission is only an internal national institution. It doesn't have a direct connection to the UN human rights system.
Yeah, it does not have any kind of linkage because it's one of the government institution established under the law of Ethiopia.
Okay.
Shall I
But
say something?
But there is also.
Sorry for the interruption. Just to add on what Tawfiq said, actually, UN engaged, especially as far as I know, the UNDP, for example, is actually working with the government counterparts. Especially as you know, UNDP intervention area is capacitating of government institution. I know Human Rights Commission, Ministry of Ombudsman or such Supreme Court and such. There is a program called governance thematic area as a UNDP. So they get direct support, technical assistance, expertise by the UN seconded to such governance institutions. So the UN is, especially the UNDP is working closely with such institutions. So maybe they are standalone, but technically and even financially supported by the UNDP specifically, just to reflect this.
Yeah, the relation is a kind of partnership. Rather, it's not. There is no a direct contact between the different.
Yes.
There is also one institution called Ethiopian Human Rights Council. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is a government agency, it's a commission. But there is also Ethiopian Human Rights Council, which is an SSO, is an NGO, which was established by the Professor Mesfen, who is a professor of history or geography in Addis Ababa University, but he was passed away in the last year. So it was an NGO established by the Professor Mesfen, and even it was established before 30 years, before even the government has established its own structure to the human rights issue. So still now it is operating, but due to the previous CSO proclamation, because an NGO established in Ethiopia cannot generate more than 90% of its resources from foreign sources if it's going to work on human rights issues. Because of that regulation, the activities of the Ethiopian Human Rights Council was decreasing from time to time, but now it's reviving. Now the CSO proclamation was revised and amended. So it's creating a conducive environment to operate a human rights agencies in Ethiopia.
I remember I have read an article that the Mesfen has written about, I think also something about human rights, so it makes sense that he
he was a well-known person.
Yes, yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, I think we'll try to move to the next subject about land rights. I think what I want to discuss here is like what some of the main challenges is in Ethiopia regarding the protection of forests, and because I have an assumption that it has something to do with land rights, and I would like to hear your view about this. I read that first of all, the land, now the state owns all land in Ethiopia. So that I found that interesting. But like, first of all, do you think what is the relation between land rights and the protection of forests, and is there any relation? Yeah. Is it clear? Or
Sorry, are you requesting the land policy of Ethiopia?
Yes, yeah. I think in a broad question, what do you think the challenges are regarding protecting forests and maybe the relation to land rights and land policy, like in general?
Yeah, regarding the challenges in forest protection, you see the number of population is increasing from time to time. So if the number of population is increasing from time to time, so the people might need an additional resources, including we need agricultural farmlands, we need source of energy, we need also the different inputs from forests. So in order to get that resource, people, so the farmland will occupy the forest areas. At the same time, people might need a fuel, so they will cut trees, and there will be a wide spread of deforestation. The second one is a settlement or resettlement. So to mention one of the case I know is there was, to give you an example, there was Somalian refugees coming to Ethiopia before 10 years. So they settled in one of the districts of Somali region, which is called Odo. So there was more than 250,000 of Somali refugees have been settled in the area. So in order to construct a house, in order to use charcoal or woods, they cut a lot of trees. So this is one settlement or resettlement could be one of the challenge. The other one is the awareness level. If the people is well aware, they might protect their resources, their forests. If there is no awareness on the benefits of forest, they might not give due attention for forest conservation. The fourth and the major reason is lack of political commitment or the performance of the government institutions. We can call it the lack of political commitment, lack of or existing of poor government structure. Most of the government institutions are sitting or locating at Addis or regional city or regional capital, but the forests are located in a remote area. So the government institutions will not have structure or human resource on the ground. So in this way, they could not protect the forests, and the government might not give due attention for that one. So in general, it's due to weak government performance, weak government structure, and the political commitment has contributed a lot for these challenges. This is one major challenge as to me.
Okay. And I to see how to put this. I read about some cases where the government lends out land to foreign investors for like big farming, industrial farming areas and agriculture, and maybe sometimes places where there were a forest beforehand. Is that like a common problem or?
Yeah, I didn't come across on that much, but in my previous point, I raised the case of Gambilla. Investors were coming from Saudi, most of them, and Djibouti. There was a forest area in Gambilla. So the land was given to the investors to conduct a commercial farming of tea production and rice. So a large number of people was evicted, forcibly evicted from their farmland. So their land, at the same time, the forest areas. The one I mentioned in the cases presented to the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. So as I said, the Human Rights Commission replied, this is not an issue of human rights violation. You can claim in other government institutions or courts. So there are occasions we see like this one, like we have seen in Gambella. But in other areas, I didn't see that much. It's a challenge because the land is owned by the government on behalf of the people of Ethiopia. So since the land is owned, belongs to the government has the right to provide land for the investors. But most of the time, there is a different scenarios in Ethiopia. As I said, in a pastoral area, most of the rural area and the forest land belongs to the ethnic group. It's in a law, the law says the land is owned by the government. But when we go to the pastoral area, it doesn't work that much. But in the highland part of Ethiopia, the law will be implemented effectively. But in pastoral area, each and every rural land will be owned by the different ethnic group. Not only ethnic, even it goes down to the clan. Each and every clan has its own boundary. So the government sometimes try to use a force or sometimes try to provide them a compensation. It depends on how the government handles the issue.
Okay, but there is not, you cannot like own a piece of land in Ethiopia, then you can only use it. Is that?
Yeah, and overall, individuals cannot own land. Each and everyone has the right of use, land use right. It's only land use right. That means if I get a precious materials, gold, for instance, if I get a gold in my compound, if the government knows it's not my property, the government will own it. But the good thing is I will not tell to the government as I got a gold.
No.
But what are the so of course when you find gold, then suddenly it's the land of the government, of course. But the user rights, what can you say, like a standard user right? If you, for example, you get the user right for a plot, what are your user rights? For example, I know you are not allowed to cut down the trees, I guess, but what you are allowed to have your farm there, and what else is allowed within it, like in standard user rights?
Yeah, in the land policy and manuals, there are detailed articles which specify what the rights of the people and what is their obligation. But I don't have that much detailed information on that one. But what I know is there is a lease system. That means individuals will have a land use right for 33 up to 99 years. That means for residential, it's a 99 years limit. So in that period, in 40 years period, you should have to pay the whole lease price, including the interest to be paid to the government. So after 99 years, the government can use it for any purpose that it wants by giving you a compensation for the properties you have above the land. So this is what we call it, is the use right. So if the government wants to expand its infrastructure, it might be a road, there might be the depletion or the displacement of people. So the people will be given the compensation for the property they have on the land, but the land belongs to the government.
But then, for example, if you lease some land for 99 years and you plant a forest, let us say, within your lease period, are you allowed to, for example, timber that forest as you like within the period?
In the law, if you can plant it, a timber or any kind of things you can plant it, but I don't know what the law says specifically regarding the plant that you raised using your efforts and using your resources. I'm not sure. But if the tree is previously existing one, we are sure that it's not yours. because you have the use right only. You can't use any resources because coming from the land. But
Okay.
I don't have detailed information on that one.
Okay. Let me see. Yes, I think we would also like some elaboration of like the participatory forest management. What kind of rights of use do a group of participatory forest management have? I don't know if it makes sense, but like, do they also have a right of use as a group to manage a forest, and for how long, and etc.?
Yeah, regarding this one, as I said, just what I know is only from my discussion with Farm Africa people and our project reporters. There was an ongoing effort to establish PFM groups and having a contractual basis agreement with the government institution, which is responsible for forest conservation. So there was an agreement on regarding how to protect jointly the foresters, how to share the resources or the income from coming from the forest, and how they divide or share it the benefits. All these are mentioned on that PFM Group's agreement. But in practice, I don't have such kinds of experience regarding that one. This is what I know is only from my discussion and the reporters from Farm Africa. So I don't have detailed information regarding this one. But still, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but maybe I could ask. So when you have participatory forest management, and then I understand it is like the community or is the village who has the owner rights for that area. So, but if you are as an individual, you are a member of a village or a community. So if you want to build your house, for example, you want to have your personal farm. How do you where do you go to get the user rights for a piece of land? Is that distributed by the village council or at whatever level, or where is that?
Yeah, it's a Warada level. The Warada level has the authority to do that one.
Okay. And for personal, so when the Warada level says that this piece of forest can be the community or the village has the user rights, then they cannot individually or the village cannot assign this piece of the forest to a person to an individual.
Yeah, regarding the forest, this is a new practice, I think, in Ethiopia, engaging the community, creating ownership of the community, and the benefit sharing among the community. This is, I think, it's a new practice in Ethiopia. So I don't have that much experience on that one. But regarding the forest, even in practice, I don't know any forest which was provided to the community to manage it well. And
Okay.
even when you ask me, I thought that you are asking me about the farmland or a piece of plots of land to build a house or to construct a house. But regarding the forest, I never come across with such kinds of practices.
But you can also say, for example, so is it a common practice, for example, when the farmers, if the farmers organize themselves in cooperatives, do you know if it is common that a Wareda can assign a piece of farmland to the cooperative, or is it only individually to each farmer?
Yeah, the two cases will happen. For instance, if in our intervention in a different region, If we will communicate the Warada administration, and there is also a structure called Cooperative Promotion Bureau or Cooperative Development Officers are there on the Warada level or district level. So first, the legalization process will be completed before providing them the land. So they will be legalized on the region. It's the region that legalizes them, but the Warada will facilitate the process. And once they get the legalization, they will be given a farmland. That means that if the government, the Warada government can provide a land for individuals, at the same time, it can provide a land for the cooperative or for the groups.
Okay.
Both systems are there.
Okay. Great.
Okay. I would also like to ask about ethnic minorities and their land rights. Because there's this, the article in the Constitution that says that the ethnic minorities have self-determination. And I was just wondering what kind of relation could it have to land rights? If you are an ethnic minority, can you just then say, I want to have my own land, and then you just get it? Or how does it work with this? How does it work with this law that you can make? You can create an independent state, and do you just what happens with this article 39?
Yes, we heard that there was there's a part of the Southern Nationals, the SNNPR. They want to obtain independence in some way, right? So I think the question is, this article, how does that work? And to also, if I understand you, Amalie, how many people do you need to establish yourself as an ethnic minority, and what are the what is the framework for that?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Regarding the establishing an independent regional states in a paper level, in a law, it seems an easy step. The Constitution says that the claim or any ethnic group that demands an independent state has to present its demand by having 2/3 of the total, the voices of the members of the parliament, the lower level parliament. If we take for the SNNP case, it will be the zone parliament. The zone parliament has to approve it and then present it to the regional parliament. That means the zone can request with having 2/3 of the voice, approving the request, and it will be sent to the federal parliament. So the federal parliament can see it and can give them. But in practice, we never see this is happening, except the cases of the Sidama people. Sidama ethnic group is one of the majority in South Asian nationalities. There are around 5 up to 6 million people are Sidamas in the South Asian nationalities. And the capital city of South, which is called Hawassa, is also belongs to the Sidama. So that's why, to mention the Sidama case, it's a different. No, they have been struggling for the last many years, even in armed force struggle, not only the peaceful struggle. So that's why they can get their independent state. But my general point is, the law says, Article 39 says, they have the right to self-administration to self-rule and establish an independent state. Not only a state in Ethiopia, even a state, an independent state. Like that means it's a different country, becoming a different country. The sense of the article is 39 is any regional states can establish, can become an independent state or country.
Can split from the federation. That is.
Yeah, from the federation. But in practice, this is not an easy one. We see what's happening in Tigray regional states. Yeah. But the challenge is, when we talk about establishing a state in Ethiopia, there is no an article that tells us to be an independent state, the ethnic group, number of ethnic groups, the diversity, the geographic area. This is not mentioned in the laws. For instance, Sidam has, as I said, 6 million people. They have the right to become an independent state. There are also an ethnic group called Harari, which are only around 200, 150 or 100,000 people. They have their own states. The one with 100,000 is having a region, but the one who is having 6 million people is not getting the independent state. And it took a long period to have their own states. So there is no any kind of requirement, detailed requirements on that.
Okay. Yeah.
So also, but then within the states also, for example, what is it possible to organize yourself around your some kind of self-established culture or ethnicity, and for example establish a new zone within a region? Of course, also we are thinking something like these the what you can call indigenous peoples, for example. I know that they might be very small minorities, but such as, for example, I don't know all the pastorates. I guess you will have quite large pastoralist communities. I guess the hunter-gatherers, such as the ones we have been talking about, are quite small. But what are the opportunities for establishing your own zone within a region?
There was the increasing number of demands to have a different zone in the same region. As I said, the challenge in ethnic-based federalism is that there is an increasing demand among regional states. That means the one who might try to dominate the ruling party, there might be an interest to dominate the federal government structure. At the same time, there are conflicting interests, even in the same region. There are ethnic groups who are requesting a different warada. There are ethnic groups who are requesting a different zone. But in a past government structure, in EPRDF system, the government was arresting the people who have been mobilizing such movements. So it was taking a measurement. But now the Abiy administration is doing what? It's trying to convince the people. Abiy, even most of the time, had frequent movement to the zone, district, and in different areas, even to consult with the community. He tried to elaborate the benefits of having a large administrative structure, to have a common structure in one particular areas, rather than having a different small piece of structure here and there. So the law allows the ethnic group to establish such kinds of structure, but in practice, the government is not in a position to accept and provide them that right.
Okay. I have like a concrete example of one of these cases about it was actually the article I read from that Silvio Meston wrote wrote about the Majangia hunter-gatherers in the Gambela region. I don't know if you ever heard about them. There should be about 60,000 people located in the Gambela. They lived in a forest called the Majang Forest, which is now a UNESCO biosphere reserve. Have you ever heard about those people?
Yeah, we call it Majanger.
Yes,
Majangir.
Yeah, Majanger. Majanger and Shakicho has already they have their own zone under the Gambela regional states. I think there are the Gambela region is classified in a 5 or 6. I think it's 5 major ethnic groups are there. So each ethnic group has its own zone under the Gambela regional states. But unfortunately, Majanger and Shakicho are assigned under the same zone. So even till recent period, there was an ongoing conflict between Majanger and the Shakicho ethnic group. So Shakicho people, I think the Majanger people was targeting the Shakicho. I think the Majanger is considered they are indigenous people to that area. So they consider they are the owner of the resources in the zone. So they want to dominate the Shakicho ethnic group in that area. So there was ongoing conflicts. But I don't have detailed information on other issues.
Okay. Yeah, I brought them up because they sound interesting, because they lived in this forest, but now they are kind of being forced away because of big agricultural investments. And because a lot of people are moving to the Majang zone, a lot of settlers, and they are also doing agriculture instead of, and then like cutting down the forest. So they were an interesting example, and I read that an organization called MELCA, MELCA, worked with them. Do you know anything about this organization?
Yeah, I know this organization working in partnership with, do you know Koika? Is Koika. Korea, Koika, Korean Development Agency.
Okay, yeah.
Koika, Korean, Koika, KOI, yeah. And at the same time, Jimma University, it's a well-known university of Ethiopia. They have they have a consortium working on livelihood and environment-related intervention. So I think Malka Ethiopia is all working on in Gambela region, in the forest areas.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a local NGO.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And
as you said, in Gambela, yeah, Gambela is one of the resource-owned region because it has a fertile land. There are rivers that could be used for irrigation. The weather condition is the ecology also convenient to the agricultural intervention. But in the Gambela, most of the Gambela people their livelihood was not based on agriculture. But now their livelihood base or culture is changing to the agriculture. But now the government is providing large hectare of farmland to the Indian, Saudi, and the Djibouti investor to promote the commercial farm in Ethiopia. So one of the targeted area is in the Gambela. So there was an ongoing debate regarding that one because the communities was not being compensated in the right way. It also have an environmental effect on the area. All this was a debating issue in the last few years.
Yes, yeah, I think I also, exactly read about an Indian company who got a lot of land there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe I can ask a more general question, because with this ethnically based political system, it seems like, and also you see the ethnical, what can you say, identity seems very strong as such, because you are, it seems like that the population is very clear on, or the whole system is built upon ethnicity in some way. But I also guess that with so many years have passed, and you also have globalization in Ethiopia, that you also, of course, you have intermarriages between ethnicities and so on. How do you see the whole question of ethnicity? Does everybody just belong to one ethnicity, and then everything is fine? Why is everything not mixed up? You know, here in Denmark, we are Germans, we are Swedish, we are all kinds of, you know, everybody is mixed. And in a country with so many people like Ethiopia, and I guess you would also be mixed in various ways. Do you have such a strong? Does everybody have a very strong identity in their ethnicity?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. To add on this, let me tell you that most of, we know the Oromo people is demanding more right, even though the prime minister is from Oromo.
Mm.
Most of the political leaders who are requesting more the freedom to Oromo people and thinking that the Amhara people was exploiting their resources, are their wives are Amharas. What do you say? The man is struggling to more for the Oromo people right, but while his wife is Amhara from Amhara, most of the political leaders are this one. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know the reason behind, because I think there are two different reasons for this one. The one is, as you said, most of the people are already mixed. I know the activists was promoting Ethiopianism, because most of the people are already mixed, and there are people who cannot say I am Oromo, or I'm Amhara, or I am Tigray, because they are already mixed. So that's why most people are promoting Ethiopianism rather than promoting this ethnic-based federalism. Even the federal government is also has such kinds of interests to mitigate the sense of Ethiopianism and build the sense of Ethiopianism. So this, but the challenge is that the problem among ethnic group was not raising today or yesterday. It was centuries. So there was, for instance, if we take two ethnic groups, Oromo and Amhara, they have been struggling for a long period to have a dominant power in Ethiopia. So Oromos think that they have been oppressed by the Amhara. So most of the kings, our kings, are from Amhara and the Tigray region. That means they're from the north. So most of the Oromo people think that even there was, if we take OLF, it's a party, Oromo Liberation Front, which has a large number of supporters in Oromia, is struggling. Before 5 years, the agenda was to establish an independent country or independent state. So the reason is, one is a history. We don't have a history. That means an Ethiopian in which we agree a history. That means we don't have a common history. What I mean is that people will not agree on history, on the contents of, or the flow, the narration of history. They have a different idea. The second reason is it's a political. The political leaders want to get a political power by using ethnicity as energy, as a fuel. So they want to mobilize their supporters, their ethnic group, and to influence the federal government power. So even there's not we can't get a simple answer for this one, but Jigsaw might add on this one.
Okay. Oh, this is very delicate issue. It makes our country so fragile. You may hear that a lot of ongoing disputes because of this. You know, I'm saying this. My personal position, it is because it is, for me, it is insanity, or because it is a rudimentary system. When you, as you said, when you compare with in the global practice, people are not such obsessed with ethnicity or tribalism as we are now saying, because as you said, most of us are mixed. Me is an example. Just I marry from different ethnic. So my daughter have a mixed ethnicity. So there is no room for claiming, so a mixed ethnicity. You are forced to claim my mother, her mother ethnicity or her father ethnicity. So you don't have any choice of a mixed identity. So it makes this an illusion, but our society is not understand this. So the ongoing conflicts arises from this. So it is, totally, difficult just to live, let alone, nowadays a lot of conflicts arises. The people's political parties are unable to reach consensus. As Tawfiq says, there has dispute on history. People didn't agree on history. So it makes, some ethnicity, as said, those are considered oppressor, others are oppressed. So people are some ethnicity afraid of existing as a citizen. Some has existential anxiety, so such kinds of insanity for me makes our country fragile. Hope we pray for a divine intervention really for this to settle the politics. There are upcoming elections. I hope the people try to select the ones they believe for the continuity of the country. So when the politics settled, I hope things will be sorted out. Maybe it may be a turning point for our country. Maybe the country's changed its arrangement from ethnic-based federalism or to national or citizen-based country. I don't know what will be coming after the election. So it is really highly delicate, sensitive, issue.
It sounds
We
like
pray
the
for
fuel.
the divine.
It sounds like the fuel of a genocide. This is this is what.
Yeah.
But is it your impression that most people want a united Ethiopia, or that most people want to stay with the ethnic federalism? Do you have any idea?
No, this may be to see after the actual election, the result of the election. Maybe some people maybe need the unified ones, and maybe others may need to continue this structure. So I think the poll results, maybe the election results, maybe tells this, I think.
Yeah. For instance, if you ask me my view on this issue, I believe that it's better to have a united or a different structure rather than based on ethnic-based federalism. But I believe that our people's understanding and our people's awareness level is not in that situation. There is no convenient or enabling environment to establish a different structure, because the ethnic issue is not a new debating issue. It's past around 50 or 60 years. if we raise the case of OLF, Oromo Liberation Front, it was established before 60 years. That means before 60 years, there was an ethnic interests in Ethiopia. So the people, if you go to, as I say, we know that 1/3 of the people is Oromo. I can say that more than 90% of Oromo supports ethnic-based federalism. It's not a research finding, but from the individuals or from the people from the area that I was grown and from my friends, I can say that more than 90% of the people will support ethnic-based federalism. So even though ethnic-based federalism is not good for our development or for our interaction, but recently at this time we don't have another option. As I said, nationalism is good, but we don't have choice at this time. Unless we work on the mental of to work on the mental of the people, it's not the right time to bring that one. We
Also,
need to work on people.
You can say that that yes, of course, it has been a question of debate for forever, I guess. But also, you must say that Ethiopia, in spite of all this, has been relatively peaceful compared to other countries with tribalism and ethnic polarization as such, because yeah, your country has always existed, and in that way we don't. Of course, there was the hunger crisis in the 90s and so on, but really the ethnical violence, I don't see as having been. It hasn't been at the same level as in Rwanda, as in Kenya, I guess, in that way still. So in some way it works. There must also be a kind of, in the federalist thinking, there must also be some respect actually for other ethnicities. Well, that was not the discussion. I would really, I think we need to move on. I know you have a point of lobby processes, and I think that's quite important, Amalie, so let us move on.
Yes, definitely. Yes, we would like to know something about lobby processes in Ethiopia, because like how can you influence the lobby process, and what channels can you use to do lobbying regarding, for example, forest policies? Yeah, I think maybe that's my first question. Like, how do you think you can influence the lobby process in Ethiopia?
Yeah, can I use one case?
Yes.
How we go up? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There is the agricultural policy. Most of our agricultural policy have been focusing on increasing production and the productivity in the agriculture sector. That it doesn't give any interest or emphasis to make agriculture more nutrition sensitive agriculture. So, you know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was supporting the African countries on the nutrition interventions. So through Alive and Thrive, it was an initiative funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have tried to lobby and influence the regional and federal agriculture bureaus and the health institutions in Ethiopia. So what we have done is we approach the Federal Agriculture, Ministry of Federal Agriculture, and at the same time the regional agriculture and the livestock development bureaus. We have negotiated with them. We have discussed on because one of my organization, International Institute of Reconstruction, have contracted that project on capacity building components of that initiative. So we have approached the government institution in order to develop the nutrition sensitive agriculture guideline. nutrition sensitive practical essays. It says NSA practical guideline. That means nutrition sensitive agriculture practical guideline. We have established a team of experts from the region and from federal institution, and including the implementing agencies. They drafted, getting an input from different regional institutions. That practical guideline was developed. So in that, the practical guideline was developed based on the capacity needs of each and every regional states. So once that practical guideline was developed, there was a workshops conducted in each region. So regional bureau heads, the different government structures have been contacted in a different workshops, a planning workshop, the orientation workshops. They have been engaged in a different workshops, planning workshops. That means they know each and everything, how they collect context analysis in each particular area, how they plan nutrition sensitive agriculture, how they monitor it, how they conduct BSC intervention. It's a communication materials, how they developed it. So based on all this intervention, we try to create awareness on that issue. So they have been aware. Now, starting from 2020, nutrition sensitive agriculture is incorporated under the regional assess annual and strategic plan. So they own it and they know it, and they have owned and they have used all tools in their regional plan. So if we go to any regional states, there are tools used to measure and plan nutrition sensitive agriculture. So there are ongoing intervention at Kabale and the Warada level, promoting farmers to make their production rather than focusing on increasing production and the productivity. They have to consider having the land use plan. They are expected to produce a nutrition-rich nutrients or food items, because the malnutrition is a common challenge in most of our regions. So in that way, we have brought to some significant changes on that area. So that means we need to approach overall, we need to approach the government structure, the process owners, that means the bureau heads, office leaders, and the experts. We need to create awareness on the issue, and we need to engage them on the process. We need to incorporate their interests and their demands, because the context might be different. As I said, the guideline was developed, then each and every region has adapted to the guideline to its context. So in that way, we can influence and lobby the government structure in the different levels.
But in such a case, what are the entry points? How do you get into cooperation with the ministry, for example? How do you get so high up in the system?
It requires continuous discussion and consultation. You see, the government institutions have different priorities. So they might not give you that much attention to each and everything. So you need to there are different directorates under the ministry. So you should have to focus on the directorates which is directly relevant to your intervention. For instance, in agriculture, in the Ministry of Agriculture, there is the nutrition sector under the Ministry of Agriculture, but there is no structure on the regional levels. So first, you need to approach the directorates. That means the agency which is directly relevant to your intervention. You need to have a continuous discussion. Even you need to create a kind of friendship. You have to communicate frequently. Once you create a frequent communication and a discussion, you to create some sort of partnership and a friendship, individual friendship also. So in that way, that once you create a smooth collaboration and a partnership with the directorates, you can ensure it will be an easy to get the intention of the ministries or the higher officials in that sector. So in that way, you can get their approval to go to the process. So, but it requires, it demands a frequent communication, collaboration, discussion, and incorporating their interests and listening their demands also.
Mm. So to which extent, of course, these connections, you also emphasize the personal connection with the people in the directorates. How do you see, so lobby efforts are much easier if you know these people personally, or does the system also, maybe I can turn it around, you know, in for example, Denmark, to do a lobby process, of course the personal relation also matters a lot, but you would also see that of course they emphasize mostly on the research, evidence-based research and peer-reviewed research and so on. How do you see that scale in Ethiopia on the emphasis on evidence-based research and the political or the personal relation between key persons in the process?
Yeah, your communication with individuals working in that institution is only helpful for decreasing the bureaucracy. For instance, if I go to one ministry in which I don't know anybody in that institution, you can mention the case of CSO agency. If you have any person who know him in that area, things will be easy. But in general, as you said, this personal communication is not only the only determinant factor. As you go up, the personal communication is diminishing. You cannot influence the higher officials. You don't know him, you don't know them. So you need to come up with evidence-based advocacy strategies. So our lobby has to be evidence-based. It should be supported by the evidences, by the research and the studies conducted by different parties. The other issue is, rather than trying to influence the government structure as one institution, it's better to work in a consortium, or it's better to go through the other networks and the consortium which have the same interest or which have the same intervention in that area. So this means it increases your voice to be heard by the government institution. So we need to make our lobby based on evidences, and we need to engage different parties, or we need to involve in a different structure networks. At the same time, it's better to have a personal communication with the decision makers.
Okay. I would also like to ask you, but this is more specific, because I read up on some of the current policies there is in Ethiopia, for example, the climate resilient green economy and green walls ahead and such. And I just wanted, maybe first of all, to know what your impression is of these policies. Do you think they will have any effect? And also, if you see some kind of, what could be some like concrete enterprise for example, Forests of the World, if you want to lobby for more forests in Ethiopia? Do you have some suggestions for some concrete policies that maybe are under review or needs to be reviewed or something like that? So like, if you have can give some examples of some of the concrete current policies who maybe could be relevant for a lobby process.
Yeah, do you referring the policy and the strategies area that could be revised or that we need to work on in our advocacy and the lobby effort?
Yes, exactly.
But you see, yeah, the space is open. Yeah, we can work. For instance, we can review the existing policy and the strategies. We can pick or identify the areas that should be amended or that could be improved. So based on that, once we identify the area that should be amended or modified in order to bring a significant change, positive change in the forest conservation or forest management areas, we can lobby and advocacy efforts in that area using the same strategy that I have explained into the case of nutrient sensitive agriculture.
Yeah.
For example, I would like to ask about, of course, I don't know if I guess it is part of the climate resilient green economy, but the whole, so there's a federal initiative for that plant. How many the tree planting day, for example.
Yeah.
That of course, when as an outsider you see that you're working for Forest of the World, then of course you see that as an opening to something. How do you see for example, that project with the tree planting day? I guess it is an initiative that is based in some policies such as the climate resilient green economy. But how do you, for example, if we were Forest of the World, we would see this, yes, a great initiative, but which kind of trees are being planted? Are these plantations or are they biodiverse forests? Who will maintain it? Who will monitor it? Who will? How is it implemented? Do you see an opening for us to go into such a policy? And how would your advice be on how do we do it?
Regarding this initiative, as to my knowledge, there is no a concrete strategy or guideline developed on handling all this issue. But from the practice we know is, yes, it was initiated by the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Agriculture and Forest and Climate. It's a directorate under the Ministry of Forest and Climate Change Commission. There is a commission. So they will coordinate the seed raising of seedlings. So the regional agriculture bureaus also raising the same seedling. In the initial period, that means in 2019, the plantation was only focusing on the existing seedlings, that means shade trees only. But in last year, the more than half of the seedling type was is a kind of fruit seedlings was incorporated in the seedling that was planted in last year. So even this year plan, I have seen also a news on the seedling raisings in Ethiopia. So the fruit seedlings was incorporated in the seeds prepared for the plantation. So each and every organization will conduct a plantation as a campaign. The institutions or the community in one particular area which has planted the seedling are responsible to provide water and to keeping the trees. But in practice, there is no strong follow-up and keeping of seedlings to raise by providing water and other inputs. So this was a challenge seen in the last year, but the government, the regional government, the total seed survival rate was around 80% in last year. But most experts are not accepting that rate because without having a close follow-up support, 80% survival rate is not acceptable. Experts are saying this one. So I say this is the gap that we identify on that area. So in total, but the most of the interventions, you see, the communities have been involving or participating in the planning issues. I think one of the questions is related to the how the communities are involved in environmental protection areas. I think Amelia has raised this one.
Sorry?
Yeah.
So was it a question?
No. In overall, there is a gap on keeping the ceilings or caring after the ceilings is a gap in these campaigns. But overall, the initiative is good, but it has to be strengthened. There should be a close follow-up and support, monitoring and a follow-up support on that area. There should be a clear strategy and a guideline on how to lead or on how to coordinate all these plantation campaigns or ceiling plantation campaigns in Ethiopia.
Yes.
But how do you see the initiative? Is it something it as it is more or less on the initiative of the Prime Minister himself, and it is not really very well monitored. It seems like kind of a flag, like what do you call it, just a branding project in some way, which so the Prime Minister can say we have planted so many trees, but it doesn't seem he is actually very interested in the footprint of it, or so how do you see that? Is it like a what you call a branding initiative, or is it an actual policy which is important for him and the country?
Yeah, it's difficult to give a clear answer for this one because we don't know their internal interests, but from their activity, we see that he was talking much on that issue, and he was visiting the nursery sites. At the same time, even he was driving a car to provide water to the plants in the center of Addis. So when we see his interaction, it seems that he's interested and they want us to expand or replicate the action. At the same time, we cannot say that the African leaders want to get the people's support by doing one particular thing to be associated with that thing. So he might have his own personal interest. But what we are sure is that we can say that we have planted 200 million trees in one day. We have planted 1 billion trees in a year. But the major thing is how many percent of that ceiling was survived? How was the survival rate of that ceilings planted in the country? But from the practice, I don't think it's a concrete, and it was led in a coordinated way. There are challenges on that regard.
Okay. I just wanted to see if there's anything more I'd like to ask about before we round off. I don't think there really is as such. Christian, do you have any more questions you would like to?
No, not as such. Of course, we can be talking about this for days and weeks, you know. So I think it is, of course, it will be an ongoing discussion. I look very much forward to when we are able to travel, so that we can have some of these discussions in person and over dinner and so on. So because of course it is extremely interesting. I don't know if you have, of course, like an overall question could be, now both of you have been introduced to our international strategy, and you know about our challenges of of interpreting the forests of the world, rights-based solutions in the African and the Ethiopian context. Maybe just for a rounding off question, like an open question, what do you see as the best way of going forward when we talk about rights-based solutions and the work with for one, you can say human rights, you can also say local community land user rights and lobby efforts. Where do you think that we will get the best footprint from working in the Ethiopian and the East African context with these issues?
Yeah, the major thing is the starting point should be to know the context in each and every areas, because in our discussion we have raised that there are differences, context differences in different regions. Even when we come to the definition of what constitutes minority and the indigenous people, it's a conflicting idea. And so there might be indigenous people who are minority to that area. At the same time, there might be a minority people, but not an indigenous people. That means there are even there is not an agreed definition of what constitutes indigenous people. Does it mean the first comer, or does it mean the first comer and have been marginalized due to different culture or attitude? We don't know. So the first thing should be to know the existing situation in a different area that we want to intervene. So once we know the context and the needs and the demands of the community and the government structure, we need to come up how we should go about this one. So we need to incorporate or consider the interests of the government as a different structure. So we need to also take a lesson from other intervention areas of rest of the world intervention areas. It could be from Latin America. So we need to try to get a lesson from that areas. And finally, we need to come up with a certain intervention and approach as well.
Well, as in relation to that, I acknowledge and I do see that the term indigenous peoples and communities, it is everywhere in our strategic framework. Also, Amalia and I, we were asked yesterday, we had 2 hours to review our strategy on rights-based solutions, and it was like, it just says indigenous peoples everywhere, and that is how it is now. But I also think that the rest of our colleagues in the organization acknowledge that the context in Africa is different, and we have to rephrase this in a way. And the whole concept of indigenous peoples, it cannot be the central core aspect of our rights work. It must be. It needs to be annex, because that is our approach in one part of the world. But our approach, if we are to describe a global approach to rights-based, then the indigenous peoples cannot be the central core focus. So the question is more, how do you see when in the tool of engaging in lobby processes? You can see we have several tools or several solutions. One solution is that we plant some trees, or we do some agroforestry. One solution is that we work with the civil society and we inform them about the value of tree and ecosystem services and so on. But at this tool where we have some solutions where we go into dialogue with authorities and we do lobby processes and we work with rights, where do you see the best potential for what we in the end want? We want, of course, to increase the forests, and we want to of course create livelihoods for the people that has some relation to that forest. Do we now what I hear you say, Tufik, is that actually you say that we take it from we take departure from a local context. We take departure in this an area, a geographical area, and we find out what are the challenges and what is the space for working with this within the geographical area. Or do we take departure in a national context, for example, going into things like the tree planting policy and offer services such as monitoring and collection of data, or do we do it in another way? So I think we should forget about the term indigenous peoples, because as you say, it doesn't really correlate to the local context. So the basic question is, how do we conserve and increase the forest best when it comes to the lobby and advocacy efforts?
Yeah, in our case, for instance, we have partners in Ethiopia, local partners in Ethiopia, or we can also consider also Farm Africa or local implementing partners. So I suggest that the local implementing partners need to focus working on the ground intervention. And there are different government structure, be it the zonal or warada or kabale structure. So the partners need to work on the ground level intervention. That means we need to build the capacity of the government institution, the awareness level of the community. We need to create awareness, and we need to establish a kind of group or different groups or committees that can protect or conserve the forest, working with the CSOs or government institutions in the locality. This could be done by our implementing partners in Ethiopia. We as Forest of the World, as we have a human resource at federal level, we need to strengthen our collaboration and the partnership with different forest forums. There are different consortiums, networks at federal level working closely with the government institution, with federal institutions at this level. So we should have to be a member of that. We have discussed on this issue last time. So we need to be a member of that consortium. We need to actively engage and participate on the issues that we need to work closely jointly. So most of the things that could be done on the network could be an issue of policy and a strategy and a strategic plan. If we go to the government institution as Forest of the World, they might not accept that much, or that it might take a long time to influence or to get their willingness. But if we work in a consortium in the network, we can increase our voices and influence the government institution or decision makers. So what I suggest is we can work the different interventions that we are implementing in Uganda or in Latin America, while considering the context in Ethiopia, but using our partners, local implementing partner. As we, Forest of the World, we need to focus on a higher level interventions, working with different the networks in Ethiopia.
I think that sounds like a very sound advice. I'm looking very much forward to see these networks when you find out which networks are there, Tufik, and of course we should prioritize be getting memberships there and getting our voices heard, and maybe also take up the role where we support especially the creation of these networks and the collaboration between these, and especially the processes that the networks have and in producing both research and policy what you call reviews and so on. So yes, that was more than 2 hours now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. This has been really grateful. I've learned a lot about not only Ethiopian culture, but also the administrative system, and this has really been great. I don't know if any of you have anything to add, then you just interrupt me. But otherwise, I will say that Amalia and we will continue this process, of course. Also, we will talk with some Ugandans, some professors here and there, different NGOs also with this experience. And of course, we will also share whatever we find with you. So I would just like to thank you all for your participation.
Me too. Thank you very much. It was very informative.
Great.
Yeah.
And then remember, this afternoon, you are invited, Ejiksev and Tofik, to say hi to our international department meeting. It will only be very briefly, just like 15 minutes at the end, just so that you have the chance to see everybody and say hello, and they can greet you. And I guess you will get a small introduction from our international, our leader of international department, Jakob. And yeah, just a very informal meet and greet. But the important thing is just that the meeting, we keep the meeting, what do you call it, the meeting hours quite strictly. So the meeting for us is from, let me see, from 2 to 3 in our time. So that is from 4 to 5 in the afternoon in your time. And we cut off the meeting at 3 o'clock precisely. So if you are like 10 minutes delayed or something, then you will miss the meeting. I shared the